Naomi Brooks, a sharp, professional black woman, stepped into business class and eased herself into seat 3A, a seat she had reserved weeks in advance for its spaciousness and unobstructed view out the window. Suddenly, a hurried voice cut through the silence of the cabin. "Excuse me, could you please change seats with my daughter? She needs a window seat to reduce her flight anxiety." Lisa Carmichael, a white mother with her 8-year-old daughter, approached with a worried and determined expression. Naomi looked straight into Lisa's eyes. Her calm but firm voice resounded through the cabin. "I chose this seat for my own reasons. Unfortunately, I cannot change." It was not just an answer. It was the affirmation of a woman who clearly understood the value of each of her choices. Not all refusals were so simple. The mother's eyes suddenly took on a different tone, no longer gentle, but a simmering anger, a resentment that Naomi had never thought she would have to face on this flight. But this is just the beginning, an opening step in a series of challenging and confrontational days, where it is not just a chair, but an uncompromising fight for respect, fairness, and justice. Will Naomi stand her ground until the end? And what will the story behind this 12A chair reveal? If it were you, would you dare to stand up and say no like her? Let's discover together what really happened on that seemingly peaceful flight. The clatter of the service cart had just ended when a small voice called from the front of the cabin. "Michaela, we need you for a moment." It was Lisa, reaching out to signal the head flight attendant, her voice laced with urgency but still maintaining a false politeness. Michaela stepped forward, the calm demeanor of someone used to handling delicate situations. It was not difficult to realize that something was wrong here. She carefully checked her ticket, her eyes quickly scanning the information on her phone and the seat label on it, then confirmed in a clear but soft voice, "Miss Naomi is sitting in the correct seat, seat 3A. Lisa smiled faintly, then began a series of roundabout arguments, talking about her daughter sitting next to her, that she was afraid of heights, that she couldn't sit alone because she was prone to panic attacks, that this was their first time flying this far. She emphasized, in a half-joking, half-blaming tone, "Women should give each other a little more space, don't you think?" Naomi remained silent, her hands still lightly gripping the edge of the chair, but her eyes began to waver, not from panic, but because she began to feel more clearly the layers of reason being used as cover. Not for a worried child, but for a familiar attitude, demanding and imposing. Michaela, after a moment of thought, replied softly but firmly, "I sympathize, but every passenger has the right to keep their reserved seat. I'm afraid we can't request a seat change just because of a personal request." Michaela's determination made the atmosphere in the cabin somewhat heavy. A few passengers' eyes began to turn towards the three women standing. Suddenly, from the front of the cabin, the cockpit door opened. A tall man with gray hair and a neat pilot's uniform stepped out. It was Captain David Hayes, the captain of the flight. He approached, his gaze sweeping over Lisa and then stopping at Naomi, nodding as a silent greeting. In a low, calm but clear voice he said, "I heard there was some disagreement. I apologize for the inconvenience, but every passenger has the right to keep their reserved seat. Please respect that." Lisa froze for a moment, then forced a smile, whispering something indistinctly into her daughter's ear before turning back to the back row, unable to hide her anger. Michaela thanked the captain with a discreet look. Naomi, for the first time, felt protected, not by excuses, but by the presence and unequivocal affirmation of a position of power she had not expected to be on her side. The plane was about to take off, but cabin 3 was no longer just a place to sit. It had become a silent statement that sometimes what was right needed to be defended not by argument, but by the fair and unwavering presence of those who stood up at the right time. A few days after that flight, a twist of fate brought Naomi back to an unexpected place. Naomi walked through the large revolving glass doors of Davenport Financial's headquarters, a towering glass building in the heart of the city, where every step echoed solemnly. She wore a dark blazer that hugged her slim figure, carrying a leather briefcase containing the diversity and inclusion proposal she had spent months preparing. When she was invited into the 14th floor conference room, she did not expect that the door would open to her face to face with something she never thought she would. At the head of the table, in a cream-colored business dress and a powerful gaze, was Lisa Carmichael, the woman who had been on the flight that day and who, at that moment, held the position of Senior Director of Human Resources. Their eyes met. No words were spoken for a moment, but the air was thick, as if the glass room had been completely sealed off from oxygen. Lisa was the first to break the silence. "Hello, Miss Brooks. What a surprise." Her smile was half polite, half a small knife across thin skin. Naomi returned the look with a flat gaze, pulling up a chair and slowly opening the file, while on the other side, a few executive eyes quietly darted between the two women. What had been a normal presentation now hung between confrontation and fate, and Naomi knew that every word she spoke would be more than a presentation of ideas. It would be a test of her resolve, of how a woman of color could enter a space of white power and still maintain her own voice. Soft light from the projection screen bathed Naomi's face as she presented her diversity and inclusion plan, her voice calm yet powerful. The numbers and charts were clear and crisp, demonstrating the importance of a fair workplace where everyone is recognized and valued. Each slide was more than dry data, but a living testament to the future Naomi believed in and was determined to pursue. Lisa, with a frowning face and challenging tone, kept interjecting with sharp questions, trying to shake Naomi's point of view, but she always responded coherently and convincingly, based on specific numbers and careful research. That steadfastness was like a solid wall, making any rebuttal meaningless. The atmosphere in the meeting room was tense at every moment, but Naomi still maintained her composure and absolute professionalism. As the presentation came to a close, a round of applause rang out from the senior management, who not only saw the conviction in each word, but also felt Naomi's courage and commitment to the job. The gentle smile on her lips did not need to be too bright, because deep inside there was a quiet joy. Today's victory was not a power struggle, but a testament to the power of ability and resilience. Naomi stepped down from the podium, filled with pride and assurance that the path she had chosen was not just an idea, but a real, solid step forward for both herself and the people she wanted to protect in the organization. This was not the end, but only the beginning of a long journey, where her professional integrity would continue to guide her to the success and justice she longed for. After the meeting ended in an atmosphere of tension and hope, Marcus Reed, an African-American interior designer, approached Naomi. He was not only a professional guest, but also someone she had briefly recognized on the flight that day, who had silently observed and witnessed everything from afar, with understanding eyes and meaningful silence. Marcus's appearance was an unexpected bright spot in a long day of work, opening a new door of potential between people with a desire for change and relentless perseverance. They chose a small coffee shop where soft music and the warm aroma of coffee created a space for stories to begin to unfold. Talking about work, about difficulties, about the ideals that had taken root in each other's minds, they shared sincere feelings about the multiform programs that often lacked depth and true meaning. Marcus listened to Naomi with complete concentration, his eyes shining as if reflecting the thoughts she had kept hidden, creating a gentle but powerful connection. After those moments, Marcus gently invited Naomi to attend a charity gala, an event where he would be a speaker, where the voices of people like them could be heard further, contributing to promoting deeper changes in the community and work. Naomi hesitantly agreed, both curious and encouraged, feeling that this was not simply a job offer, but an opportunity for her to step out of her comfort zone and expand her worldview, finding new rays of hope in her journey. That gentle beginning, in the dim space of a small coffee shop, was not just a meeting of two colleagues, but the beginning of a new connection, a companion on a long and challenging road, where ideas are not only discussed but also turned into action, and where every small ray of hope can become a flame that lights up the future. As soon as her phone screen lit up with a new email notification, Naomi couldn't help but slow down a beat, her eyes glued to the subject line. Davenport Financial has officially accepted your proposal. The numbers, the analysis, and now the official recognition from the company, all felt like a valuable turning point in the journey she had embarked on. This message was not only an affirmation of Naomi's abilities, but also opened the door for the ideas of diversity and inclusion to no longer be theoretical, but to become a living reality in a large corporation. However, behind the halo, there are still invisible but powerful shadows. Lisa Carmichael, with the position of Senior Human Resources Director, cannot directly reject the proposal, but can create subtle obstacles. The slow steps in the review process, the hidden questions that Lisa sowed through internal meetings, are like invisible but dangerous traps, overshadowing the straightforwardness and transparency that Naomi pursues. She clearly understands that the road ahead requires not only perseverance, but also ingenuity to overcome challenges that cannot be seen with the naked eye. In the meantime, the phone rang. It was Naomi's mother Vivian calling from Atlanta, her voice soft but powerful, like a reminder that penetrated deeply into her mind. "My child, don't just win with arguments, you must also keep your heart. Because the truth must not only be protected, but also kept completely. Never lose yourself in those struggles." Her mother's words were like a light shining through the fog of the storm ahead, reminding Naomi that true strength lies not only in the strength of arguments, but also in the softness and sincerity of the heart. Naomi held her phone, looking out the window at the setting sun, her heart filled with determination and serenity. Every step, no matter how difficult, was part of the journey, and she knew that to truly change, it required not only the strength of the mind, but also the strength of the heart. A strength that only those who dare to stand firm in the storms could possess. The afternoon was mild, carrying a soft autumnal scent as Naomi entered the small cafe outside Davenport Financial, where Elizabeth Wells was waiting. Elizabeth's eyes, soft but sharp, held many things that could not be said in formal meetings. The conversation began not with familiar pleasantries, but with a revelation that made the air pause for a moment. Lisa Carmichael is not only the Director of Human Resources, she is also the head of the internal group that resists any diversity reform efforts within the company, Elizabeth said, her voice both cautious and firm. Naomi listened, Elizabeth's words quietly fitting together, shedding light on the closed doors she had sensed but had no concrete evidence for. Lisa, with her cold smile and her pointed questions in meetings, was not simply a hindrance to her work, but a profound force of resistance, holding on to outdated values in an age that demanded change and more justice. The conversation was no longer just a business conversation. It plunged Naomi into a principled struggle, where every move meant choosing between conservatism and progress, between division and integration. She realized that her proposal was more than a plan for diversity and inclusion. It was a voice for a different future, an irreversible change that not everyone was ready to accept. The lunch ended in thoughtful silence, but Naomi's eyes were burning with a fire more determined than ever. The power play she was embarking on was not for those who would give in easily, but for those who had the courage to look the truth in the face and fight for it with all they had. It was at that moment that Naomi understood that the journey was no longer a mere proposition, but a moral battle, and she was ready to step into that fateful vortex. The calm surface of Lake Michigan was like soft silk, stretching and shimmering under the blue sky that gradually turned purple. Naomi stood there, quiet and steady, as if she was looking not only at the scenery, but also at a future that had just opened up before her eyes. Tonight's charity gala was approaching, where Marcus would pick her up, taking her on a new journey that was both surprising and full of promise. But at this moment, Naomi was no longer the girl of those days when she was confused by pressure and challenges. She had grown up and knew how to stand up for herself amidst the storms of life. The unanswered questions about what lies ahead, whether the confrontation with Lisa and the counter-reformists will last, or whether new doors will open to her, remain. But Naomi's fear has long since receded. She has learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to walk with that fear, regardless of obstacles and temptations that want to hold her back. At that moment, her phone rang softly. A message from Vivian appeared on the screen. An old photo of Naomi as a child, standing in the schoolyard with a radiant smile, her eyes filled with a world of dreams and aspirations that had never faded. Naomi smiled slightly, her eyes reflecting the gentle light of the sunset. She whispered to herself, like a silent prayer and affirmation, "Justice does not come from knee-jerk reactions, but from the courage to live up to your values, every day." It was not just her story, but that of many people who are fighting for truth, for justice, and for a world where every voice is heard. A new dawn is breaking, not promising ease, but always carrying within it a ray of hope and true justice.